We'll be beginning with Jens at this point. Jens, are you prepared to approve sufficient funds for the successful implementation of the ARISE program?
Well, I think that the heart of any great city is its downtown. I think that we have a lot of potential with our city's downtown, but we still have a long way to go. I think that as far as approving the lump sum of money for that, I'd have to take a look at it. I think that we have to be sure that we're spending every penny that our city has very wisely, because we don't have all of that many pennies. I really think that we need to make sure that when we set up something with this ARISE plan, that it's ready to go forward and that it benefits everybody. Because we need to make sure that we're attracting local businesses, and I think that as far as if I'd approve the whole thing, I can't really say that. It's more of a case by case. I'm not for giving one lump sum of money saying go for it, do what you'd wish, but I personally want to see our downtown succeed, and I will help any way that I can do that.
Thank you, Jens. Steve?
You know, just taking it visually, the ARISE plan is stunning. I mean, it's extremely impressive. I mean, as a runner, man, I'd love to have a walkway or runway over the top of the Rock River. That's not a need. Is that to say that would I support the infrastructure to maybe someday have that walkway if it's sponsored by XYZ company? Yeah, possibly. I believe, yeah, as Jen's mentioned, you know, we need to do this as a case by case. I think infrastructure would be the first case. Depending on the support of the downtown and the willingness of the downtown to work together with the city, I would look at supporting at least the first phase of the ARISE plan.
Thank you, Steve. Billy?
I'm not in support of the RISE plan at this time. We're already at a $800,000 shortfall. Next year, we're going to have more. What do we want? The wants? I don't want the wants. I want our necessary priority needs at this time for this community. Our needs are more important, and priorities got to put up. The wants, forget that right now. I would be willing to work with downtown people if they want to go ahead and start repairing some of their buildings so they can get stores in there. Why don't they do their own survey out there to see what the citizens want in their stores? That's the same thing I brought up before, and that would be the best thing, and have a work code situation done like other communities have done in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Paul?
I guess I'd have to agree that it's quite an open-ended question. It's something that would have to be studied, where the funds are coming from, how much the project's going to be. Is it a fully funded taxpayer, or is it taxpayer and private through the businesses downtown? I can't really say yes or no on that without knowing more specifics on the particular vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Spencer?
My answer probably would have been the same, but I mean, we need to look at this $800,000 budget shortfall. If we have to scale back the ARISE plan, if we have to defer stuff to further in the future, you know, we need to get our priorities straight. We need to look at every dollar that's being spent, make sure it's being spent efficiently, and if that means scaling back in some of what part of the ARISE plan, then that needs to be done.
Thank you, Spencer. Jim?
I fully support the ARISE plan. Our first hurdle is to get the parking plaza down, and the city is very aggressively trying to find grant money to help us do that. We have to remember, this plan is going to be a combination of private, public partnerships, developers, city money, grant money. It is not going to be all on the city of Janesville. It cannot be. Also, it's going to be a project by project basis where we don't have one ARISE thing where we're just going to approve X amount of dollars. It's going to come over a period of years. I think it's a great thing for our city. I think other cities have developed downtowns at about the same level of our city, and I think we can do it. I think let's dream big. Let's not just say we can't do it. So I am in favor of ARISE.
Thank you, Jim. Rich?
I also am in favor of a rise, and I would remind folks that when we did the comprehensive city master plan update back in 2006, we also did a downtown renaissance master plan. And the RISE program has grown out of that downtown renaissance plan. This is a plan that is going to take roughly 15 to 20 years or more to implement. And there'll be many different city councils who will be looking at project by project by project, what is going to be accomplished and what isn't going to be accomplished. And Jim is right on target. This is a public-private partnership. It's going to be funded through capital dollars. It's going to be funded through Wisconsin Department of Transportation dollars, Department of Natural Resources dollars. But it's not one lump sum that's going to take place over the course of the next year or two. This is going to drag out 15 to 20 or more years, and there'll be lots of funding opportunities and lots of funding decisions for future councils.
Thank you, Rich. We will be beginning with Steve for this next question. Steve, what do you feel are the top 3 issues facing the city of Janesville?
In my opinion, we've touched on one, and that is a rise and how we are going to deal with that. I'd have to say short term right now is the sale of the General Motors facility, and how do we reclassify this? Do we do an FTZ for trade zone? Can we reclassify that? That's something we need to take a look at. And third, I'm going to give you 4. The $800,000 deficit is a major hurdle. And then the last one is the continued development of the 4th Ward and what community action has done, stepping up to the plate, and the city helping revitalize at least 2 properties. One where my father grew up is bulldozed, and it should have been bulldozed, and now they're building again. No longer 903 McKinley, but you know what? It's a start, and it needs to happen more often.
Thank you, Steve. Billy?
Well, the RISE is one. 2 is the General Motors. And I understand tonight there was a discussion on the television of like a $25 million thing for General Motors. And this, I didn't get the full story up because I turned the TV off and hurried and got up here. So just got just a little bit and pieces of it. So I don't know what the news actually said about it. It's just one of those hints. The other way is changing the 2-way street. I mean, Milwaukee, I'm not for that. I think it's going to be a problem going up the hill, safety problem, not only for the fire departments, also as you get down, it's for the trucks to unload, and that unless they have a alley in there. There's other things in this community that we need to work on, and instead of, we need to put our priorities straight first. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Paul?
It's hard to pick just 8, but, or just 3, I mean. I was thinking of the $800,000 shortfall, but there might be 8 too, at least 8, yeah. I guess the shortfall and making sure that the citizens in Janesville, we get our fair share back so we can continue to live in the great city of Janesville. When we mentioned the GM plant, not only the sale of the plant, but we need to try to have some input on what's going to come in there after the sale, but we really need to be careful on the contamination that may or may not be at that site. You know, I don't want to see, I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth if GM did give us $25 million, but I'd hate to have them give us $25 million and then say, and you get the whole place, and it's $200 million to clean up the site, so we have to be careful on that. And I guess the third I would say is retaining businesses, and you know, we have to now be looking at what's going to go into the 500,000 square foot where John Deere is pulling out. So that would be my 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Spencer?
Well, the 4 million square foot dormant assembly plant, the GM plant, obviously is one of the #1 issues right now facing Janesville. And I still think there's an opportunity for the GM plant to reopen. I think that window of opportunity is closing, but I still believe that maybe not GM, maybe another automobile manufacturer, but Donald Trump has said, he told Ford, if you build that plant in Mexico, I'm going to charge you 35% in every car, truck, and part that you import into the United States. So, GM's building cruises in Mexico, they're building Buicks in China. If a cruise built in Mexico is going to cost 35% more, then GM might have to rethink their plans. And, they may have to renegotiate the UAW contract. They may, decide to reopen the GM plant if Donald Trump becomes president. So I think that is a real opportunity that we need to keep in mind. Depending on who the next president is, there may be an opportunity to reopen the GM plant.
Thank you, Spencer. Jim?
The first item, the most important, is balancing our budget. We're facing a shortfall next year, and it's up to the council to decide how we're going to address that. Do we take our general fund down? We don't want to reduce our core services to our people. We don't want to cut jobs. That's not a good thing for our city. The other issue is economic development. General Motors is part of that, but we've been very aggressive as a city in obtaining tips and bringing in businesses. We need to continue that. We have an unemployment rate of about 4.8%, which is improving. We need to cut that down. And the third thing we need to do is we need to make sure our infrastructure is continually being updated, such as our streets.
Thank you, Jim. Rich?
I think the three issues all tie together in my mind's eye. We need to be looking at our priorities as a council in terms of how we fund our calendar 17 budget with an $800,000 shortfall. I can tell you that my priorities are to maintain public safety, police and fire. My priorities are to maintain the protections that we get from our Public Works Department. The second issue that we're going to have to balance out somehow is in the world of all of the restraints that we have on our spending coming down from the state of Wisconsin, we've got to build our tax base by virtue of aggressively pursuing economic development opportunities. This past year, we were exceptionally successful, and we will feel the impact of those new properties going online in about 2 years. In the meantime, we've got some challenges we're going to have to deal with the General Motors plant and how it's going to be disposed of, and a shortfall that doesn't jeopardize the priority services that we have.
Thank you, Rich. Jens?
I think our three main points should be roads, how we're going to manage our money with the upcoming budget shortfall, and I think this one is the most important, is how we're going to bring jobs back to Janesville. But not just any jobs, family-supporting jobs. That's the key thing there, folks. It's how we're going to bring family-supporting jobs. I think one of the tools to do that is how we go forward with the closed GM facility. We have the opportunity here to turn one of the most tragic events in our city's history to something that will give us prosperity for years and years to come. We need to highlight how great our city really is, because it's phenomenal. We live in a great city. The things that General Motors facility has is it has railroad access, highway access, water station, power station, and an airport there. Now this is the key one though, is we have one of the best workforces in the entire nation. There was a company that took a look between here and another city, and they wanted to see the skills of our workers. Now, there's a time card going up here. I could go on and on about how great our city is, but I'll continue that further on there. But really, we should be proud of where we live.
Thank you, Jens. This is the last question, and it's your last chance to kind of persuade people that you could be the one. So it's linked to, or the three, or however many it is right now, it's linked to the idea of issues that you just talked about. So what I'm going to ask is, what is the one single issue that has prompted you to run for office at this time? And we're starting with Billy.
Well, everybody's been bringing up these TIFs. I tell you, I'm not too enthused with them, for number one. I think they're too long. They should be anywhere from 3 to 5 years, no 10s. We have a wonderful workforce here in this community, and we're trying to sell our workforce short by letting these people come in and say, hey, well, we'll give you a TIF for 10 years. Well, you know something? That money also needs to be used for our school, Black Hawk, and a few other things. So, I mean, when they sign off on those things, sometimes they're not getting a proper time. They should at least have 30 days for the school district at Black Hawk and that to really consider these TIFs. I'm not too enthused with them, and I don't really like them, but I think we need to worry about our budget. They can bring it underline. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Paul?
Really don't have one issue of why I want to run for city council. I was on from 2000 to 2008. I really enjoyed it. At that point in time, I decided maybe it was time to get off and let others come on and who wanted to run, come on the council and have the experience. I now decided I wanted to get back on again, just because I really do enjoy going through the political process, seeing different issues come forward, hearing both sides, doing the research, and then try and make the best decision that you believe is the best thing for the city of Janesville. And I feel that I did a good job on that in 8 years, and again, I'd appreciate your vote on April 5th. I'd like to do it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Spencer?
Well, I'd say the single issue that really caught my attention was the Enbridge Line 61 pipeline expansion. There was a vote in the Janesville City Council and also on the Rock County Board to call for additional review of the Enbridge Line 61 pipeline. And I just, Enbridge employs over 500 different people in southern Wisconsin. They provide 100% of Wisconsin refinery capacity. They also provide 15% of U.S. oil imports. They're a very important employer, and I thought it was the wrong move to call for additional review, especially when the route had already been approved. And now this issue is going to be another part of this issue is going to be brought back up because Enbridge has plans to twin Enbridge Line 61, and I just think that it was wrong to call for additional review. I lived in Nebraska. The Keystone XL pipeline was a controversial issue out there. I was a big supporter of that. I was stationed at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska for a while, and I just think that we need to end our dependence on foreign sources of oil. This country needs to achieve energy independence, and it's projects like the Keystone Pipeline, the Enbridge Line 61 pipeline that are going to bring about energy independence. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. Jim?
I'm running again for the third time because I see Janesville moving in a very positive direction. I see many things that are happening that I'm excited about. I want to be part of that. I've been involved in all the major decisions, all our council, my fellow council members have, and I think we can't be complacent. There's a lot more to do. We need to get the resolution of GM. We need to balance our budget. We need to keep going with our road reconstruction. There's many things to do, and I would really like to continue to serve our city again and have that opportunity. I hope I have you. You'll vote for me come in April, but I've worked very hard and I've spent a lot of passionate time working on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Rich?
There's a whole lot of issues that are very, very important, but I think probably the one that's most important to me is in the arena of economic development. Given the constraints that we have on us, levy limits, expenditure limits, and the like, one solution for us is to grow our way out of that dilemma by retaining existing businesses, expanding existing businesses, bringing in new businesses, and making sure that they pay family-supporting wages. We're very limited in terms of the tools we have to do that, but this past year has been really, really exciting. We've been very, very successful, and I'd like to see us repeat that success year in and year out for the long haul. That's why I'm hoping that you'll support me on April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Jens?
Yeah. So when I graduated high school from Craig High School, I talked to my friends and classmates about the future plans, where they're going to college, where in the workforce they were going to go into. And the question I always asked them was, do you have plans on returning to Janesville? I'm going to tell you folks, the answer I got was pretty concerning. It was, Jens, I don't know. And that's why I'm running, because we need to change that. And why they said that they didn't know if they were going to come back was because they didn't know if there would be opportunity in Janesville when they returned. So I think that the way that we do that is with family supporting jobs. Like I was saying before, the General Motors facility is one of the biggest assets that we have right now. We can turn a tragic event into a positive going forward. One thing with that is we have a great workforce here. There was a company, like time card's going up again. There was a company that did a study. They wanted to take a look and see how great our workforce what really was. They devised a test that was going to test work ethic and things like that. And with that, they wanted a 20% pass rate. Our city had a 70% pass rate. That's something to be proud of.
Thank you, Jens. Steve?
You know, I'm not dismissing the issues because we talked a lot about the issues tonight. But the reason why I'm running and why I decided to run is because I truly felt it was time for me to give back further into the community. You know, Janesville has been extremely good to me growing up. I've lived here my whole life. Unfortunately, I don't work here, but I still live here. It gave me a solid upbringing, and from a time when my dad mentioned once that they grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, and my uncle corrected him and said, no, we were too poor, we didn't have tracks. To a solid upbringing that my parents were able to give me, I want to give that to my children. And frankly, am I going to have all of your right answers? No. Sam doesn't have all the right answers all the time. Jim doesn't. Rich doesn't. Paul, you didn't at the time. You know what? I'm going to do my best and listen to you. So I'd appreciate your support on April 5th.
I want to thank you all for being part of this forum, and I want to thank you, audience, for attending this forum and listening so attentively and providing such great questions for us to use here. I also want to thank the League of Women Voters, Forward Janesville, and JATV for helping us to have this wonderful candidate forum for City Council. Thank you.